said to me, you look strong. I was like, is that a chat line? And then we went to seven,
yeah.
and they were all female. So it was 10.
What can I say?
And 6 females.
Hi, we are both dance classes. I am Beatrice Ghezzi.
And I'm Orly Quick.
This collection of interviews is part of our Teachers Rehab 22 project, funded by the Arts Council of England.
We've interviewed a selection of dance practitioners who've made an impactful contribution to education and learning over a period of time. They come from different dance disciplines and they work in different contexts, and we hope you find their words as inspiring as we have.
Rosie and Beverly from Irie Dance Theatre.
Temujin and Sunanda from Grounded Movement.
Hakim from Impact Dance.
And Erica from the University of Roehampton.
Sunanda, what's your favourite step?
So one of my favourite steps, right, which I've mixed up with tot rock, is the tap step. I don't know what you call it. Half breaks. Oh, 1, 2, 3.
No, the half break.
I love that step. And you know why I love that step? Because it's just got that bounce in it. And what I did one time, I choreographed I call it the Olympic routine.
Yeah.
And I mixed it with tot rock. So tot rock in Breakin is the dance you do before you go down to the floor. So I created this little routine with those steps that you taught me. So it had like the basic Indian step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. And take it up, take it up, take that. Yes.
Nice.
And that's one of the roots of jazz, is that half break, isn't it? It comes from the shimshan.
Yeah. Shimshan is a really nice dance.
So what's your favourite step, Ted?
I was trying to think about this. There's two. One of them, well, there's lots, but the two that come to mind is surprisingly the Shorty George and the Over the Tops. And the reason why the Shorty George, I think, is because sometimes when and this is back to longevity as well, sometimes when you see an older dancer do something, like if you see like the Shorty George, if you see like a modern stage, West End show, it'll be like this. That'll be a modern version of Shorty George. But if you see some of the old school one, they'll contain it, and you'll see so much more in there. And then the other step that I really like, and what I like about it is because there's a lot of jazz steps and tap steps, which is not a million miles away from each other, got that sense of illusion. So it's called the over the top. You go over the top there, and you can drop your keys at the same time. But it's got a nice little rhythm, and I use it sometimes in pieces.
We use it.
How's it go?
Yes.
We're in process, always in process. Hello!
Hello, surprise.
My name is Temujin, but I'm not the original Temujin. You'll be pleased to know.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too as well. Hey.
Hi. My name is Sunanda. I'm a professional dancer, artist. My name is Sunanda. I'm a professional dancer, artist. I've been dancing since I was about 3, and then I got into gymnastics, and that was my love all through my teenage years. Gymnastics. I competed for Britain, and then only once, and then kind of went on to go to dance college. I went to Lewisham College, which was then called Celtec, did a 2-year foundation course. Then I went on to a place called London Studio Centre, which in those days was a bit like the Fame School. So I did 5 years of training. I learned a lot of the traditional jazz, Lindy Hop, Charleston, tap, which I didn't really like tap before, but tap was like, when I saw this guy do tap and Savion Glover, I was like, hold on a minute, that's what I want to do. So I was lucky enough to to learn all of that. But growing up, I've always been into hip hop. I wanted to do breaking when I was in my teens. I sort of did it in my gymnastics routines, but I didn't actually start breaking properly until the resurge, which was the mid-90s. So after working with Temujin for like over a period of time, I started going into breaking and met all the breakers in London, like just got involved, started battling, made my own female crew over the years, and FLOWZAIC, yeah, and basically, yeah, haven't looked back since then really. Now I do more, I MC a little bit more. I'm getting a bit on. I still battle sometimes, but I host for battles and I MC, and I'm also doing theatre stuff with Grounded Movement. Yeah, so my B-girl name is SunSun, which was given to me by my American friends from Philadelphia that came over in 2003, and we hit up a really good relationship. We're good. They're like my brothers. They're all back in Philly now, but they lived in London for a while, and we were in a company together. I had a couple of names before, breaking names, which you get as you go along, but they started calling me SunSun, which means if you're somebody's student in New York, it's like, yo, you my son. And because my name's Sunanda, they just started calling me SunSun. And then SunSun just stuck. So that's been my B-girl name since 2003, yeah.
My name is Temujin, but I'm not the original Temujin. You'll be pleased to know. So Temujin is a name that Genghis Khan had, and my parents named me that crazy name. And at school, I was not happy with that. But now, as an artist, I'm happy with that. So my name is Temujin BGIRL. I'm a dancer, choreographer, and I suppose maker of projects now. I think that's where I'm at, you know. And that's it. I've been working for since 89. This is what I'm saying. I stopped in the 80s. I've been working since 89, and I joined a company called the Jive and Lindy Hoppers, which are a proper old school Lindy Hop jazz dance, authentic jazz dance. That's what they call authentic jazz dance. Others will know it as African American jazz dance. And when the company approached me, it was just the right time, just the right time. So you wouldn't have thought I'd become a dancer when I was younger. But music was wicked around that time. You know, Motown, you had the Jackson 5 and all of that. So that was always there in the background, motivating you and think, oh yeah, I can do that. And we used to dance along. So I left school early. So I wasn't impressed by that, and I did have 2 qualifications. I was given advice: get your maths and English, and then leave. And then I just started working, getting from one job to another. I ended up with British Telecom, and I looked to my life ahead, and I saw some of the guys I was working with, and I said, I can't live my whole life like, I can't see myself in 50 years time. And you know, it was like a sentence. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, it just was not for me. Now when I look back, as I need to be doing something I believe in, you know, it doesn't matter how much it pays, you know, how simple it is, how comfortable, you know, if you don't believe in it, you know, it just has to stop. And actually that's why I ended up leaving the Jive and Lindy Hoppers as well. Because I loved them, you know, they were a great company to work with. We were committed to each other. There was a time there where I was with them for 4 years, and I said, I want to do my own thing, and it wasn't possible with the company. I had loads of work, and I said, okay, I just need to leave, you know, because this is my life, and you know, I'm going to regret it at the end of the day. But I realised I love performing. I mean, I think that's been the key, because it's just good. It's a good energy. And I realised first when I was dancing in this disco that I shouldn't be at. It was a pub, whatever, and it was the first time I was doing, you know, freaking out, doing my own thing, and I think I noticed some people looking at me, checking me out. And it was the first time I sort of thought, oh, so they must be impressed by what I'm doing. And I think that's planted the seed that feels quite good, you know, and so I think one thing led to another, and eventually we made the decision to leave our work and go to college. I was age 20, So that was my first formal training at the age of 20, you know. This is, I suppose, this is a beautiful element of jazz, isn't it? Lindy Hop.
Yeah.
Little reverse.
Yes.
There was a group called Southeast London Youth Dance Company run by an amazing guy called Keith O'Brien.
You ever heard of that? Ever heard of it?
Keith O'Brien, and you did his classes as well.
Well, that's how I met Tim at Keith O'Brien's class. I went to Keith's class that particular Sunday in 1993, and he was there, and there was a few other people that I hadn't seen for a while, and I think you were sort of you were kind of talking to a few of the dancers, and then you came to and said, "Oh, you know what you said to me." You look strong. I was like, is that a chap line? No, but it was like, would you like to come and like be, you know? And because I felt, oh my God, this is a famous man coming talking to me, and he thinks I'm quite good. So, and he was saying, yeah, he's going to do rehearsals like every Sunday before Keith's class. So I started coming to that, and that's how we kind of got acquainted. We set up the company with three of us first.
Yeah, no, we had three, and then we went to seven, yeah.
And they were all female. So it was 10.
What can I say?
And 6 females, which was quite interesting.
It's
and
changed a lot.
My idea was, and it was my idea, I said, why don't we just call it Temujin Dance Company? This is once we had all the other girls in there. And everyone was like, really? Yeah. But because there's no one called Temujin, do you know what I mean? It's such a rare name. So that's what we decided.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we did, because it's quite a poignant, people remember it.
Yeah, it's true. It was a seed, and it hadn't matured then either. But it was a seed to form a company, start developing our own work that was growing from this blend of this relationship or crossover or no, relationship's the best way to describe it, between the foundations of hip-hop and the foundations of jazz, and the relevance of it. So not just as a dance style, but as a cultural, social experience and all of that. And also to share that with other dancers. For me, it's sort of gone in a slightly different direction in terms of because I've become less about style and more about reason. And I think the reason why that's happened is because I felt like myself always getting this label and saying,
pigeonholed.
What do you do? Oh, you're the Lindy Hopper. What?
It's not just what I do. Yeah.
You know, it's one wonderful thing. But also, I think out of that process of trying to start up the first company, the Grounded movement in the early days, we were trying to train young people to do it, and they were going in and not, and then going in and not, and I realised, God, this is hard work.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. You know, for them to learn what we know, we're gonna have to develop a whole school. You know.
Yeah.
And you have to do a course, and you know, and so for me, I started to realise. It's more so about finding a way for them to engage with the same subjects and reasons, so then they can interpret it from themselves as a dancer.
So I had loads of breakers come up to me. Oh, I want to do Lindy Hop. I want to learn it. You've got to give your hip hop dance. You've got to actually come and give some time to it, because it's not just something you can learn overnight, like any sort of precious style, isn't it? But
so it's still evolving. But I think it's about, for me, I think it's about creating a movement that recognises the connection between dance and culture and what you want to say, either as an individual or as a current artist, which can be, it doesn't have to be, you know, contemporaries, like, people see that as current artists, but current artists are whatever they're doing now, they're current artists. And to find that way of communicating that, and actually now it's digging deeper into the language of these forms, so like hip hop and jazz, original jazz, you know, within there you've got layers of music, you've got layers of lyrics, songwriting, political songs, all of that. So now it's like, it's more of a sort of a cultural movement that hopefully is rich enough for people to engage with in different levels, and therefore be able to then also re-collaborate with other artists. Getting young people, like we were, like you were, whatever, and it's not just black young people, young people to start to, and their communities, to start to lift themselves up.
And also acknowledge what's happened, you know, with before, where it's come from, and like, it's not just something that you guys invented yesterday. This comes from somewhere else.
And if you realise you've got all of these people behind you, you know, that's power. That's culture. That's community, and all of that.
For me, that's really important to me. The forms and the roots and where these dances come from. You get that a lot in breaking as well, you know, the foundations of breaking, and that's the first dance of hip hop, and people look at hip hop and they think it's something different, but actually that is the first dance. And then vernacular American jazz is the, you know, the roots of where all of this came from, and funk. But like, and I think that's why when we sort of came up with Grounded, which was a name that Tem always says, he always says, get grounded. So again, I said, why don't we just call it Grounded? Because that's what Tem always says when he's teaching. It was about, for me, it's like really important to not lose these amazing, rich dance styles from the history that it's come from, because you know, you see a lot of things kind of watered down, diluted over the years, and it's like, and then they'll come back up again. It's like, oh yeah, there's this, and it's about not losing that, because these forms are just, for me, I mean, I did a lot of different styles at college and here, there and everywhere, but these forms, Breakin, the first dance of hip hop, and Lindy Hop alongside Charleston, and you know,
tap,
the original tap,
cakewalk,
not the 42nd Street tap, which is fine, but when I see it in its purest form, that is what excites me.
There's a sense to having an understanding of the connection, because then when you look, so when I thought first about jazz, I used to think that was a white thing, not in any whatever way. You know, I was brought up by a Caribbean, a guy from Trinidad who'd experienced whatever racial discrimination there, and then back in England. So obviously that was quite up in my head. And so when I started to think about jazz, I always thought it was white, or rock and roll was white, because that's what was presented. And then when I started to find out more about it, I realised, hang on, my God, you know, I had no idea. Elvis Presley, you had no idea that he was actually taking a lot of ideas from the clubs and the blues and the scenes that was going on.
He grew up with them.
But our knowledge of that is, you think, he's blues, you know, because that's what you're getting. And so it's more so about, and that was important to me, that became important to me. And that helped to ground me in a way that, wow, so it's not just about styles now, this is about what happened historically.
Yeah, and it's the history behind it.
The relevance, the social, and then also actually, so some of my people were involved in it, or part of my culture. I'm not just some sort of victim in life that's not achieved anything. So it's, young people are really important, very important. But it's really good if we can bring people together, and also to make a sense of purpose in life. You know, so older people, when they're getting to the closing stages to their life, they still want purpose.
Yeah.
They still want to be challenged and celebrated.
Yeah.
And young people at the beginning of their lives, they need to have purpose. They need to be celebrated. They need to be cherished and all of that. And those aren't a million miles away from each other, you know. And also they can enrich each other. So my little one, we go and visit a poorly relative, and every time this relative sees her, you see a spark of energy and joy come through her, you know. And on every level, that I think that can happen between the generations. And equally, you know, I've always felt like my elders are.
Yeah, we look up to our elders.
Firstly, you've lived that long, so well done, you know.
Like,
well done for getting through this life.
What I call the OGs, like Frankie Manning, who was one of the original Lindy Hoppers.
Yeah.
who passed away when he was 94. I actually danced with him when he was 90. And I've seen Tem, like, I've never seen Tem be so, like, that was your hero, wasn't he?
It was one
you were
because
so humble to.
Because he was there doing it when it started.
Just to meet somebody like that, for me, that's gold dust. Like, even because I've gone to America and met a lot of the old OG lockers, and that is one of the most important parts of, I would say, my career. Just spending time with those people and hearing them talk and learning from them. You know, that has paved my way in what I do.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the question. It's like, are you going to get out of bed today? You know, why do you want to get out of bed? This goes back to what I was saying in terms of working with young people, older people.
Yeah.
Is what's your purpose? What's your reason? So equally, you have to ask yourself, well, I found it. I've had to ask myself, do I want to do this, and what's going to keep me, and how do I maintain it? And I found I've had to accept change. Not like I'm getting older, but accept I'm going to have to do something slightly different in order to make sure there is a route for my ambition.
Yeah.
And not ambition to be whatever some theatre or whatever. It's ambition to do work that's relevant, you know. So I think for me the longevity is being stubborn and not giving up.
You get to a time in your life where you're like, oh, I'm still doing this. I can't believe, like, I'm having to tell people that I'm 50 and I'm still doing it. I said it now, you know now. No, but it's like, you know, when I was 21, me and my friend used to joke and say, like, yeah, we're going to still dress like this when we're 30. We're going to still dress trainers and hip hop and everything when we're 30. I'm 50 and I'm still dressing like this. But you know, you realise, and given that chance, because sometimes people just look at you and think, oh, well, you just teach now, that's all you do. But actually, no, we're still in this game. We've got that experience, and I think that's so great that we can actually say that we're still doing it. We're still fighting for it.
And actually, that was something we were talking about in the Zoom.
What keeps me going, one of the other things keeps, when you see we did this project recently, and when you see, it doesn't matter, it just can be like a droplet, and you see a young lad or lass or whatever get up and spit some rap that they've written as a result of being in a project with you, and you realise there's so much talent out there, and there's all these new shoots pushing through to grow, you know, and we've just got to say, show how to push yourself through.
Yeah.
And it's and we're still discovering. I haven't got the
answer.
I haven't got the answer. But the only answer I think I have is passion and motivation. That's one powerful thing, you know.
It's so important, like, to know your history, and I'm really into history. Like, I wasn't into it at school, but since I started dancing, history to me was really interesting about the whole stuff that's happened before, and I feel like we need to keep, obviously I'm all for evolving, and I think a lot of the styles do evolve, life evolves, but it's about knowing where you're coming from, and every time we perform I feel like we're saying something, do you know what I mean? We're trying to tell a story or just let people know this is, and that to me is more satisfying than being the best breaker in the world or winning all these things and stuff like that. A career in dance or in performing arts, it's like you've got to have the passion. You've got to want to do it. I mean, I see so many talented people, but some are talented, but they just don't really want it, and that's fine. Others maybe not so talented, but they're gonna go for it, and that's where I always was. I was never the talented gymnast, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to be there, and I'd practice in my garden all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think I'm coming from that side of things where it's like it was never given to me on a plate, but I had to fight for it. And I think that's the one thing I will say to young people that are coming out of wherever for a career in dance. Like, you just got to have the passion for it.
But also be willing to work hard as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's working hard in the studio, yourself, you know.
Yeah.
you know, trying to keep relationships going with your family as well, because you can get taken away for so long.
Yeah.
But be open-minded as well. Be prepared to change, because the world isn't just like, you know, it's not just like walk onto stage and it's going to happen for you.
No.
You know, it's and you can create. And I'm starting to realise you can create so many different types of stages. And it's not. And I still I almost like I don't want to motivate the next generation of performers. I want to motivate the next generation of young people that feel that they can succeed in their lives. You know, that they don't have to go and work in a supermarket if that's not what they want to do. They don't have to turn to crime, yeah, if they want to be successful and feel like they're lifted up by somebody, you know. And so that's also about getting communities to start to pull together and say, let's celebrate each other, you know.
Yeah.
And even trying to get young teenagers to learn about the benefits of putting themselves out to celebrate each other, you know, because so many people are holding back, you know. And this is your energy, this is your gift, you know. And the least you can do is give somebody a hug, you know, or whatever, say well done, pat them on the back, you know, and it's just finding different ways to do that, because we need to do that nowadays.
What a joy! What a joy! Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all this.
That's what you meant.
Sunanda. Oh, beautiful.